right, yeah. Now it's
He's
up.
now going to see me and think, fuck, I wish I'd not challenged that dude.
Are you impressed now when you see the guy?
Now I'm definitely scared. I'm not going to talk any shit.
Yeah, because he looks like the kind of person that might know somebody who could come and kick ass. Yeah.
Sure. Max, I'm so happy that you're on this podcast, because it's really, you're the kind of guest that I know that will have fun, you know, and I'm very, very happy.
I'm happy to be here, man.
Yeah. So Max, Max El-Hag, right? You are the founder of Training Think Tank. Is it correct?
Yep.
And you do a lot of fitness coaching and fitness stuff, I think.
Yep.
And we have no clue about fitness, by the way. So you know,
What do you mean? I'm ripped like a side of beef.
We're absolutely clueless, you know. But you know, it doesn't matter, because I wanted you to be here, right? I know that you're very specialized on what you do. You know, you're very advanced in your field, but doesn't matter. You know what? We'll try to find a subject to discuss about.
Hey, we're all people, right?
Yeah.
But I would like just to tell you a story how I met you, right? And the first time that I met you, you were with your friend Gabriel, right? And I see both of you coming, you know, and it was the very first time that I saw both of you, and I see these two gigantic guys full of muscles, you know. It was, Tim, you should picture that, you know. I felt
sounds like really homoerotic.
Exactly, you know. First of all, I had a hard on. I would say, oh, look at that, look at these babes coming, you know? but I was, you know, it was. You should have seen their muscle. It's just like unbelievable, out of this world, right? But when I saw them, immediately I made a snap judgment. I made a snap judgment in my head. And I know that I've sent you an email, Max, after that. I've sent you an email of apology, right? I said, I need to apologize to you. Because as soon as I see both of you, I said, oh, shit, they must be dumb as hell. Because look at them, they're muscular things. And what happened is they sat down, you know, on the table, and they start to discuss between themselves, both of them. And I couldn't understand a word of what they say. You know, they were so smart, talking about philosophy, about, you know, deep shit. And I was just like, shit, I know that I'm stupid and an idiot, but they are way, 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 way more intelligent than me. Way more intelligent than me. And much more than that, you're full of humor. You're very nice person, very caring. I know a little bit about you now. We exchanged some emails, and I'm very, very pumped to have you on this show. So welcome, Max. And
thanks, man.
And I need to apologize again, man. I need to apologize again, like on full voice. But you told me that happens a lot. Actually, people judge you immediately from the physics. So is it true? Is it something that happens a lot?
From the physics.
Yeah. From your physiognomy. Sorry.
Physical.
Yeah.
The physical.
Yeah. No,
shit.
I mean,
you know. See, I'm an idiot. Fine.
Yeah. I think being bald, 6 foot tall, from New York, 240 pounds, I curse all the time. I think the general consensus is that somebody that sounds like that is all going to fit whatever stereotypical view you have of what that image looks like. And I think it's probably because, you know, we idealize certain things like musculature and fitness, or, you know, masculinity or alpha personalities, and people have to try to fabricate them. And in doing so, they create these false identities all the time. And so people fit into these like stereotypical groups. So I think people just automatically cast judgment, like, oh, this is what somebody looks like, so this is what they must be like, which is part of the problem with fitness, right? In general, people are like, oh, you know, I see an image and that's fit. I'm like, yeah, but you don't know if that person's taking drugs. You don't know if that person can do anything. You don't know if that person has good mobility. You don't know if that person can run well or jump well or sprint or has good diet or just good genetics. And to me, like, objectification in general is just something we should get rid of, those like snap labels, because almost always they're defense mechanisms about how we feel about ourselves, not necessarily how we feel about other people, right?
I agree with you. Although, you know, you can put a label on Tim already, you know, is a old fuck, you know. That's
That
typical. This one, it fits perfectly.
Who can't sprint or jump or or do anything well. But the good thing is, I understood what you were just talking about. Olivier was like,
Yeah, we need
"Fucking
to
hell,
get together.
I'm already lost." Yeah,
In
I'm a
French,
com-
you know.
So I
I'm a
got an
complicated.
old fuck and an idiot.
But
Pretty
that's our
much.
show,
Yeah,
man. You know,
yeah, yeah.
It's the
We
name of
should
the
they change
podcast.
the name. An old fucking an idiot.
man,
Yeah.
you're so brilliant in marketing, man. You should really change things. Actually, can you explain what you do? Because you do so many things. You're coaching coaches, you're coaching athletes. You know, can you give us a little bit of your background? Just for us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How far do you want me to go back? Or do you
Short.
want me to just talk?
24. It's a post-life regression show as
Yeah.
well.
Oh fuck. All right. Well, I'll just kind of talk about what I do now. So we have 200 athletes worldwide, 6 coaches now. So we do a lot of remote coaching where people come to us. They get nutrition programs, training programs. I don't want to say lifestyle, but how about behavioral advice? So people that want to lean out, that don't really understand the effect of sleeping too little on their body composition or something like that. People in our industry call that life coaching. I don't really like that term. I think just telling people that their behaviors have an impact on their physiology and then let them make choices as to whether they're okay with that or not. Then we have educational courses that we coach coaches on. So we go through exercise physiology, how to write programs, how to assess people. I created a model of health and a new definition of health that I think I would like to get out into the public market that takes into consideration like people's mind states, their emotions, who they are as a human being, their relationships, their movement quality, their strength, their endurance. And then kind of at the top of the pyramid of that is where you would put aesthetics, six pack, that type of stuff. So those are basically our 2 primary sources of business right now. Now we're creating digital products for people that want to have like maybe less of an investment in that. I think the general population doesn't understand how important good coaching is for fitness, right? Like people are like, oh yeah, fitness. Like I just eat right and go to the gym. I think it's obviously a lot more complicated than that. And if it weren't more complicated than that, then everybody would be fit that wanted to be. Mm-hmm. But the reality is most people can't figure out how to get out of their own way to feel healthy, or they don't think it's worth it. They just are like, you know, fuck it. I don't need a 6-pack. I'm married. I have kids. I'm okay with that. But they don't understand that life can be better if they feel good. If they understood what health was, if they understood what movement quality was, they may get rid of some of their back pain. They might be able to experience emotions better, might be able to mediate them better, might be able to have better control of their voice in their job, in public speaking, or whatever the case is. And that the human body and understanding and having self-awareness to us is important. And I think that's kind of the message that we're trying to get out. And we do that through athletes, coaches, and then ultimately, you know, now the business is kind of expanding into doing that for regular people. Is that kind of a good enough explanation of what we do? I know it's a little bit esoteric and didn't really say what we offered, but
shit, this is. I think I've understood 1% of what you just said, but that's fine. You know, Tim,
Great.
Did you understand everything? It's fine.
Yeah. I understood 2.6%.
Great.
No,
Some of the most communicator on the planet.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that you don't like the term life coach because neither do we. Yeah, we're both life coaches, and it fucking sucks. It just sounds so head up your own arse, and so like, you know, when people say, you know, one of the common objections I get is I don't need to tell me I don't need somebody to tell me what to do with my life, and I'm like, here we go again. It's like good because that's not what we do as life coaches. Yeah. But you can understand why people's perception of that is. And I think also, you know, I've worked with probably 4 or 5 personal trainers, as you can tell, Max. For, you know, for people that are not watching the video, I'm totally ripped. I can barely fit on the screen. And I've worked with trainers. One of whom was fantastic, and he used to train triathletes, and he spotted a problem I had in my running style in like about 10 seconds. He said, you know, because I was running on my toes basically. But anyway, cut long story short. But the others, it's kind of like we'll move you around the gym and we'll use different equipment to confuse you, so you can't get used to doing it yourself. So you don't use it. But it's not really that holistic approach. You know, nobody sat down and said, what do you want to achieve? What are your goals? What are you eating? How are you thinking about this? What is your approach when you came in? So I went and saw my trainer this morning at 8:30, and I'll be honest, I've been doing a sabbatical on alcohol, and last night broke it for reasons that I won't go into, will bore people. And I had a little bit of a hangover this morning, and going in there at 8:30, and I crawled back to my car at 9 o'clock. And it's kind of like, I think basically what I'm saying is there is a place for what you're doing in terms of like with me as a life coach. I'm sure Olivia is the same, trying to be holistic, and that's what it sounds like you're saying, is not just saying get in a fucking treadmill and run for 30 minutes, or lift these dumbbells and do this and whatever, and you're going to be pumped, and take these steroids and you can fucking whatever, you'll have balls like fucking hazelnuts, but you'll be you'll be strong as fuck, and the girls will love you, fucking whatever. So is that right? Is it the total holistic approach as a human being?
Yeah, I mean, that's really, even the name Training Think Tank was about aggregating a group of people that had specialties in different disciplines and taking their knowledge and synthesizing them into understanding the human body or even the human experience. I think fitness as a whole is a pretty uneducated field, right? Like even the most educated fitness experts that are out there maybe have an experience or have an education in a little bit of anatomy and physiology, a little bit of nutrition and maybe nutritional biochemistry if they're nerdy, and then a little bit about biomechanics of exercise. Almost none of them have any background on like philosophy and how people should live their lives and what happiness is, emotional states and how they can change, behavioral psychology, meditation, different types of endurance training protocols, different types of strength training protocols, different types of movement training protocols, endocrinology and medicine. And all of these things together really dictate health, not just one. I can't take you to the gym and say, okay, your goal is whatever specific thing you have, and then say, okay, well, I'm going to put you on the treadmill and beat the shit out of you, and we're going to accomplish that. Because if you get leaner, that might not even take you closer to the goal that you have. Like the goal that you have might be a sense of fulfillment and longevity, and in which case, like improving your metabolic systems and making you utilize your own body's fat stores a little bit better is probably not going to change that. But no one ever has that discussion, because if they did, the fitness industry wouldn't exist in the form that it does today. The fitness industry preys on people's body image insecurities. So it's like, oh, you're fat, you're a loser, so you got to go to the gym and do this. And I'm like, whoa, like the standard of beauty throughout the ages has changed. Like if you go back 50 years and look at ads, women were talking about eating lard to gain weight, to be more curvy and have better sex appeal. And now they're all starving themselves to be skinnier. So I'm like, if the standard of beauty is changing, we should all fuck the standard of beauty and figure out what we actually want. And that is actually a much more difficult process than I think people think. Because when you actually start thinking about it, it's like if I said, hey, I could make you lean and strong, or I can make you enduring and mobile, or I can increase your energy levels, but you can't do all of them together based on your physiology and your background and your job and your time you want to spend with your kids. And so what's most important to you? When you have multiple decisions like that, people are like, fuck, and they can't make one. It's like going to a restaurant with a lot of options. You're like,
yeah. Cheesecake Factory. Cheesecake Factory. I'm fucked every time I go to the Cheesecake Factory.
You're fucking flipping through for 4 hours.
Yeah. I have to go the day before and then meet the people there that I'm there.
But
I mean,
yeah.
Go on.
But what reminds me of something, because when we talked, 2 months ago, and I've told you, I like to be fit.
Yeah.
And I said, can you advise me how to be fit? And you just stop me there. You say, okay, so what is fitness? What is to be fit? For you. And I say, shit. What is that? What is to be fit for? And this is a great question. Actually, you are coaching me really right now. What is my objective? What is my goal? So secretly for me, and I couldn't say that because obviously, I would sound like an idiot. Is to say, it's just to because I'm an idiot. Is to move well, but really, deep down, my secret ambition is to have a six pack, like anybody. Like this is, I want to have this fucking six pack. but I couldn't say that, you know. And you have this, but everyone will have different objectives, right? Every one of us will have a different objective. So this is what you say, basically. It's what is the goal of each one of us, right?
Yeah. Well, the problem is, I mean, you have to, let's say your goal was to have a six pack, which I wouldn't judge. I mean, I probably coach a ton of people that say they want to have it. The problem is if you say I want to have a six pack, but you keep that secret, and then the goal is I want you to get me better at running a mile, because in your head, you think that by improving my aerobic capacity in that time frame, I'm going to lean out. The reality is most people's body fat won't drop to the point that they get a six pack, or you get them a six pack and they lose their sex drive. They can't go out to eat with their friends. They can't have wine at night, and they're fucking miserable. So I'm like, in my eyes, first you need to know the goal. And then with the experience that you have and the understanding you have to tell somebody honestly what the path looks like to get there and what the outcome is actually going to be like. Not the fantasy. Like most people are like, oh, I'm going to have a six pack and then my energy level is going to be great. And I'm going to have a heart on like steel all the time. And everyone's going to come and look at me and think I'm great. I'm like, no, the reality is you're going to be fucking starving all the time. You're going to be tired all the time. You're probably not going to feel good on a regular basis. And your mind is going to be really unclear because the human body is not designed to operate at its functional state at that level of leanness, except for a few really lucky assholes that got the best genes on the planet. Everyone else is probably going to operate somewhere between 10 and 20% body fat, which isn't aesthetically ideal anymore, but it is what it is. Like you can fight your genetics if you want to, but it might not be all it's cracked up to be.
And that's another information actually that you told me. It also depends on your genes, of your genetic. How important is that actually? You know, can we put a percentage on whatever goals you want to reach? Is it possible?
In other words, can you give us an excuse? Trying to say.
Well, the problem is now science is good enough to bypass any genetic limitations you might have. So you can take T3 and test and a lot of stuff if you want to just look good. And it's pretty easy so long as you can find the right resources, which is why the fitness industry is just like a lot of times just a bunch of people that are willing to take drugs and Photoshop images and tell you that they can get you there in 6 weeks, which is the most appealing lie on the planet. It's like, wait, I can go from this to that in 6 weeks? Great, sign me up. The reality is they don't tell you like what they're doing on the back end and that the images are fake and they don't look like that year round. But I think like everything, there's a nature and nurture component. I don't know if they can put a statistics on it right now because the human genome is not advanced enough in its understanding to know how much of our metabolic capacity is set in stone from birth. But I think it plays a really big role. I mean, everybody that I know has a friend that doesn't do anything right according to the fitness industry, but has a great body. And everybody has a friend that does everything right that is constantly fat and constantly fighting it. So are they just like losers that can't figure it out? Or is there some genetic variability? And some bodies are built to be stocky and pudgy. Some bodies are built to be really long and slender. And some are built to be somewhere in between. Now, you can alter that with really good protocols, but only to a certain level. Like you're not taking somebody that is like 6 foot, 300 pounds with like Eskimo background that puts on fat really easily and turning them into a shredded, super lean, small, slender framed person. You're not going to quote unquote tone them up, but you can lean them out a little bit. You can keep them healthy, but they're probably going to have a naturally higher body fat set point than somebody that came from a lineage from the Caribbean, which required less body fat stores just as a result of adaptation over time to the heat of their environment. So I think I can't put a number to it, but I'm sure that there is some very large influence.
I agree. And I mean, the Eskimos, they're much better fishers as well. I mean, have you seen a Jamaican trying to fish in ice? It's laughable, honestly. They just have no clue. Firstly, they don't know what ice is.
Fuck, after this brilliant essay, this is what you come up with Eskimo fishing.
Just saying, just trying to point that out. It's interesting. I want to bring something up because I was talking to my coach, who I really like actually, and I've definitely no wish to knock him, because I think he's a product of the fitness industry that you talk about. And he does body competitions and what have you. Not bodybuilding. It's more like body sculpting or whatever. And we were talking the other day, and he was saying about how through the day, at the end of the day, your willpower drops and whatever. I says, yeah, ego depletion, and he had no clue what I was talking about. And I'm like, and he says, yeah, what do you mean? I said, well, that's ego depletion. I said, your body needs a certain amount of oxygen and glucose. You start off the day with a certain amount. That's why it's very easy to resist things in the morning. And as the day goes along, that depletes. It's a finite resource. And at the end of the day, and they call it ego depletion. And he didn't know. And I was I wouldn't say I was shocked. And like I said, I don't want to knock the guy. But you think that to me that's a basic, a basic of understanding of how the human body works. That if I was a trainer, I'd want to say to people, look, you're going to find it hardest in the evening. That's when you're going to find it hardest to resist. Or if you're feeling down, or if you're feeling ill, you're going to want to comfort. Your body's going to crave that kind of thing. And I just think that. To me, for a big, I train with LA Lifestyle, which is probably one of the biggest in the country. I don't know, maybe it is even the biggest. I have no idea. And you think they would teach people stuff like that about what do you think? I mean, you're nodding, Max. That
Yeah.
what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I mean, I have different terminology for it, but I think the problem is food is not purely, but largely in the fitness industry, food is looked at as a fuel. It's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
this is how much this costs to your body. This is how much this costs to your body. This is how much this costs to your body. And this is what they do inside the body. And people talk about sugar being a drug, and I'm like, yeah, but you get natural sugars all the time, and everything can be a drug, and you have to eat, and you need a certain amount of carbs. So even if it is quote unquote like a drug, like, are we going to restrict it all the time? How much are we going to give it? Are we going to use it to manage emotions? Are we going to use it to mess with neurochemistry when people get depressed, when their motivation drops? Like, if people are overly exhausted throughout the day and their cortisol comes down and they are tired, their body might crave things that help put them to sleep, because the subconscious understanding of your biology transcends what your brain understands about it. You generally, when you get hungry, you don't know why. You're not.
Can I just start? I want to start. I want to back up, because you just said something really interesting to me. Then you said, so your body craves things that wants to put you to sleep when you're feeling down. Just can you go into a bit more detail in that, because that's not something that I'm familiar with, but it sounds. I've gone. I don't want to get too about me. Not this podcast. Yeah. I do every other podcast. But yeah, I know. Yeah. But I've had a really bad period with my mother-in-law dying and a load of other things, and my wife's best friend getting cancer and whatever. And I've wanted to sleep, and I've tended. So this is really interesting to me.
It's not that simple. But sugar and saturated fat and salt can do things through insulin and serotonin and melatonin to try to help put your biology to sleep. Now, that's not the only thing that's going to help with sleep. You'd have to talk to you'd need to get a deeper understanding of the actual endocrinology, which would have to be an endocrinologist on this side of the call to be able to tell you exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm taking the piss now. Yeah.
We love the guy, Deepak.
Yeah, we love the guy.
Yeah. And then I think you probably need to, I think from a biological sleep study standpoint, there has to be some sort of like anxiety, grief management, all of that stuff that has an influence, which I'm not sure that food will be able to solely create. But I think, this is kind of what I want with regards to training think tank is if I have a theory and I'm like, well, if this impacts this and this impacts this, and somebody understands how food can be used to manipulate the body, maybe when somebody goes through a traumatic life experience, we can alter their food profile to help them minimize the biological effects of whatever that psychological trauma was. Now, I don't have the answers to that yet. That's kind of what I'm ultimately trying to get to. That's what I ultimately want to do to the field of fitness, health, because I think, at least in the States, I don't know if it's different where you guys are, but personal trainers, nutritionists, kind of where we are, is almost the front line for disease now. Because people like, you go to the doctor, if your blood sugar is at like, if this is the line for pre-diabetes and you're on this side of it 1 year, your doctor generally is not going to be like, hey, you're showing some signs of this, this, and this. You should probably do some preventative work and get this. But the second you cross the line, oh, now you're labeled and you have this problem. So before people have problems, that's kind of our role. And I think we can prevent some of the problems like, I'm not sure what happened to your body when you went through the psychological dramas of your life, but I think most people, their biologies, their actual bodies go through a fucking shitstorm. And if they had a better understanding of how to use food, how to use sleep, how to alter nutrition, they could mediate the effects of that. Then when they can go through their psychological grieving process and whatever, they can get back and start to put their body back on a progress curve. But I don't know if we have the answers right now. I definitely don't. I just have insights, discussions with naturopathic doctors, homeopathic doctors, endocrinologists, and I have these theories, these intuitions about how this would work, but none of it is like set in stone.
Okay. Well, first of all, I admire your professionalism for not diving in there and saying, "Oh, yeah, Tim, you need to do this," whatsoever. So, thanks for that. I really do appreciate it, because I think it's, for most things, in 100 years' time, we'll look back now and think, holy shit, what the fuck were we doing?
Yeah.
What were we doing? Yeah. In 10 years' time, you'll be looking back and thinking, what the fuck was I doing going on with a podcast with those two idiots? But I mean, that's another matter altogether.
The old fucking the idiot. Remember, now we have to change the name now.
Yeah. I want to. Sorry.
No, go on, my friend.
I just, Max, have you ever read the Jim Law, Tony Schwartz book? And I can't even remember the fucking name.
Okay, I have a question if you want. Why you are searching on Google?
I'll go on Google. Yeah,
go on Google. That's very professional podcast. See that? I have a question for you. I have no fucking clue what it is. So for me, I could see the fitness industry. For me, before, the trend was you need to use gym equipment, right? You need to go to the trailer, the rowing machine. You always had to use this kind of equipment. And now, the only thing that I'm hearing about is body weight or CrossFit or, like the simple stuff. You shouldn't have this big machine with electrical stuff. Is it the trend that we see that? Is it like to say that what we did before was bad and now, we go to a more good way? I know that's a stupid question, but, I'm trying to save time for Tim right now. So that's...
I found it.
I mean, I don't think it's a stupid question. I think that is more to do with human behavior. I think people like bandwagons, and they build bandwagons, and then the second the bandwagon's not working for them, they need to create new bandwagons. And to me, the fitness industry is always going to be cyclical. There's going to be trends where we use external objects. There's going to be trends where we just run and do endurance work. There's going to be trends where we do just strength training and barbells and isolated stuff to build maximized muscle mass. There's going to be times where we're just doing movement training, whether that be yoga or locomotion or Ido Portal movement.
Oh, Ido Portal.
Yeah.
I just heard about the guy. It seems to be everywhere now, this Ido Portal.
Yeah, for sure. He's been around for a long time.
Can you...
Sorry,
Yeah, can you explain?
Can you explain what it is? Because I've never heard of it. It's everywhere, and I've never heard of it. It's like fucking parties. They're everywhere, and I hear about them.
Yeah, but because that's normal for you, my friend. Anyway, can you explain what is Ido Portal?
Yeah, so he's a guy. It's his name, and he's basically creating a movement philosophy, and it integrates concepts of dancing, gymnastics, martial arts, stretching, movements as a kind of a broad topic. And basically, he is trying to transcend how people think about fitness and say that fitness is under the umbrella of movement. Now, I think that's a trend in the right direction for sure. Whether or not you fit, like his culture fits within your lifestyle and you want to put movement as the number one priority of your life, I think that's up to the individual to go search out the leader of whatever the philosophy is and test it out, try their methods, see how much time they ask you to dedicate, see if it's worth the quest and worth the pursuit for you individually. Now, conceptually, I think he has some awesome models. I think he has a pretty good philosophy. I think his stern delivery of telling people what's required for their journeys are pretty good. It seems that he keeps a lot of his private stuff private so that all you see in the public is his philosophy and him and some of the advanced mover stuff. And in order to touch the practice, you have to be willing to become a student of his path. Now, I'm not part of his community, so that's the best I can do from an outsider's perspective. I think like itoportal.com would probably be the best place to get info, or look up the Ito Portal movement or something. I've hired people that have been through his courses and stuff to try to get insight into their methods and what they use. And a lot of it is just, it seems like he's a synthesizer of best practices of each individual movement discipline. So he'll take whatever is involved in dancing and gymnastics and whatever, he'll integrate it, he'll throw out whatever is old and not useful, and kind of operate from his best practices with regards to movement. I have a little bit of a different demographic of people because I do a lot more sports performance, or I have people that come to me that say, you know, I want my six pack. I want a six pack. And in my eyes, I'm thinking, yeah. And in my eyes, I'm thinking, well, eventually, if you go down this path, you'll want more than a six pack. You'll want to have better joint functionality, better strength, better muscle mass, better energy levels, a better understanding of your physiology. And you might also want to be happy about your aesthetic profile, which is going to run down into your psychological state regarding your body. Now, if I said all of that in our initial consult, I think it would be like fucking, like, it's almost like, holy shit, dude, I just want a six pack. So I generally tend to meet people where they are and walk them along the path of wherever they want to go as a result of doing that, while trying to take care of the other things. So I try to improve the six pack. And then if I have like movement, strength, endurance, and all these other things that go into the bigger picture of health and fitness, I'm trying to improve those simultaneously. So I'm giving them what I think they need, while also delivering to them what they want. I think that's maybe a little bit different, where I know I've heard him say that you shouldn't model the aesthetic profile. Instead of trying to get a six pack or get big muscles to give the appearance that you can do something, you should go and learn how to do something. And as a result of doing it, you will circle back and be able to do it. Again, I think it's just, you know, it's just a different way of dealing with people. One is like, no, your way is that, I don't agree with that, come do it my way. And mine is like, whatever, like, do whatever you want. Let me just make sure that you're doing it the best that you possibly can. So I think it's just a different coaching philosophy more than anything else. But I'll integrate a lot of the stuff that they have because it's really brilliant, right? And a lot of the stuff that they have is very true. We are, in a lot of ways, a moving biology, right? We're designed for movement, locomotion, and optimizing that seems to be an intelligent strategy for longevity.
And I like the fact that it's very simple as well. You know, it's only movement. They use, I think, only a stick. That's the only instrument that they'll use. So very simple as well. So coming back to the question, you know, this, you know, because I think we go off tangent, but are we going to this trend of more simplicity for everything? You know, using less equipment, less things. Do you think that this is the way, or will it change in your?
Yeah,
in your
I mean, I think the simplicity is only illusion from the outside.
Oh,
when you get into anything, I mean, anything, any movement, the more expert somebody gets, the more they understand how deep and dense the details of whatever the path are. So you're like, oh yeah, you see just a stick and just rings, but you see the amount of variation in exercise selection, time under tension, type of contraction, type of workout ordering. It's not actually simple in practice. It's not any more simple than using Cybex machines and Nautilus and whatever. It just looks that way because you don't have to have a gym membership and 50 different things. Also, I think our brains are designed to fucking chase the shiny object. So salespeople are like, oh, you got to use this. Look, it balances, it vibrates, it grabs your balls. Everything's great. And you're like, whoa, I don't need any.
Oh my God, I just bought one of those. Are you telling me I was a duped?
Yeah. So I do think
my balls as we speak. Sorry.
Yeah. You're currently using it underneath the.
Yeah.
He's walking out through hard right now.
Yeah. So I think the trend is towards movement-based stuff, but I don't think it's at the highest level. If you talk to somebody like Ido Portal or Andrea Spina or one of these movement experts, what they're prescribing is not simple, and it's not based on simplicity. It's based on the summation of a lot of research and a lot of years of other experts' stuff. It just looks more simple than the complex stuff that our psyches are generally trending towards. It's like running, right? People are like, oh yeah, running's easy. I'm like, no, but the biomechanics of running an actual proper run form are not simple. The actual nutritional fueling for people that can operate at different paces that require then different types of fuel sources is not simple. Hydration science is not simple. Race psychology is not simple. But in the end of the day, if you simplify it, it's like, oh yeah, just go out and run. We just have a tendency to do that, I think, because it's fucking overwhelming. We're like fucking stuck on this rock that's spinning in the middle of a fucking vacuum, and we don't understand why we're here, what we're doing, anything that we're doing. So we like to pretend that we understand because it makes us feel better about ourselves. We're really fucking clueless about everything. And I think some people just like to have a curiosity to understand what they're doing, why they're doing it, how to get better at it. And some people have a tendency to want to simplify it so they can feel better about not understanding.
That's why I love you, man. You know, from this we go to the universe thing.
Yeah,
I love that. You know?
I can't help
myself. Say something about
you guys asked.
I know, absolutely.
I used to run, not a lot. I was never a particularly good runner, but I ran incorrectly. And I said to you before at the beginning, and I wasn't sure if this was in the warm up or when we started, that my first trainer immediately I got on a treadmill. He said, do you have knee problems? I said, yeah, I take glucosamine. He said, just forget about it. He said, it's not. He said, basically, he said, I was running on my toes, and and he said, you're just running incorrectly. Like I said, he trained triathletes, and this is when I look at the basic things that we do as kids, we run, we breathe, and we think. And we aren't taught how to do any of those things at an early level. You don't teach kids, breathe from your diaphragm, because if you breathe from up here, and I'm pointing to my upper chest now for anybody listening to the podcast, what you're going to do is you're going to create... Yeah, my muscular chest with non-flabby man boobs. If you breathe from up here, what you're going to do is you're going to create the fight or flight response, because that's what happens with anxiety. Anxiety comes from here. It's very difficult to be anxious when you deep breathe in and long exhaling from your diaphragm. We teach kids automatically run, but we don't tell them, hang on, if you run like that, eventually, I've got, I'm only 53. I know he takes the piss out of me. And by the way, I'm in the US, so you're talking about time zone, so I'm in the US as well. But I'm at 53. But I've got arthritis in one knee, and it's coming on in a second knee, and that's because I've running correctly all my life. And then we don't teach kids how to think, how to reframe situations, how to look at situations, how to problem solve. We teach them how to add two and two together, or that Columbus discovered America. Did he? Did he really? No, he fucking didn't. Yet you've given him a day of his own. We'll have a Columbus. We'll have a day. Tim, we'll remember a day where somebody.
Would be
never.
It's fine. It's fine. Max, sorry. By the way, can you Tim as a client, because can you please
Yeah.
save him, and making as a sexy beast, please? Do you think it's
Is that for your benefit?
Yeah.
No, but it's for your credibility, man. If you could turn me around from this fucking sad sack case of a bleating, whining bitch of a man into somebody that was like, wow, come on, let's do it.
I would definitely get the respect of all humanity, right?
Yeah.
Instantaneously.
Humanity. I think it will go past humanity. I think there'll be people like, we were going to invade that country, but that civilization, but now we're not going to bother. But anyway, I've come. Hang on, shut
I
up.
have questions as well. Come on, man.
Well, yeah, we'll plenty of time. But I've come up with the book is called The Powerful Engagement by Jim Ler and Tony Schwartz, and they were probably in the 80s the leading trainers for tennis players. They brought Agassi, Andre Agassi, back from being like this teenage genius to bloated idiot to back to winning Grand Slams again. And they had at one point they had something like 17 of the top 20 tennis players in the world that trained with them, and their main training centre is in Orlando. It's the other side. It's near Lake Mary, the other side of Orlando to where I am. And I called them up and said, look, I'd like to do something in terms of maybe affiliate marketing where I can. I've got a blog that's read by a few thousand people and so on and so forth. And they said, yeah, come on over. And I went over and I sat and talked with a saleswoman where she showed me around. It was this brilliant facility. At the time, they got the Russian under 18 tennis team there that were training, and they were going through all this stuff, and it all went okay. And then about 2 days later, I got a phone call from the woman who had showed me around and who met me. She works in sales, and she said, "Would you take me on as a client?" And I'm saying, "Why?" She said, "Well, I'm just stress sensitive." I'm saying, "Why?" And she was saying, "Well, we were under such intense pressure to sell the courses, to do this, and it's kind of like so. Jim Ler, he talks about the powerful engagement is emotional, physical, spiritual, and mental, and you have to get all those things in tandem. And just tandem, that's three, but or whatever the word is, and. If one of them breaks down, it's like a weak link in a chain, then they all break down. And when she phoned me up, I was like so disappointed because, the book's fantastic, Max. It's a bestseller. It's probably one of the top 25 self-development books ever. I can't believe I couldn't even remember the title, A Powerful Engagement. And it's a great book, and I'd really recommend anybody to read it. But for her to call me and say that her boss, who I met at the end, Jim Ler, who's this big 6'4" guy, and he'd just come off the tennis court, and he was super fit and what have you. I just was like so not depressed, but so like fuck. You're just like everybody else. It's just like you talk about this, and then your workforce can't even afford to take an hour off to go and relax and eat lunch and take whatever because they're under so much pressure and whatever. And I just and my respect just fell through the floor. And I'm not really sure what I'm not asking you to say about that because I don't want you to diss anybody you don't know.
Yeah.
But is that something you see through the industry? Whereas it's like a do as I say, not as I do kind of approach.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's really hard in general to not be a hypocrite, which is kind of what you're saying is like, you have this idea, this set of ideals that you're putting out, like this is how life should be lived. And then I have a team that I'm not allowing and cultivating to live that certain life. It is really hard. There's people out here that give nutritional advice that don't follow it. There's people out here that give lifestyle advice and behavioral advice and training advice that don't follow it and are really just behind the scenes taking, synthetics. There's people out there giving business advice that have never really been successful in business. But if they give the impression and the illusion of being good in business, then They can convince and trick other people. So I think the reality is that charisma sells, and it's very, very hard to find somebody that is authentically has a vision or has some sort of set of ideals, and then is also challenging the people that are with them and themselves to uphold it. It's almost impossible to live up to any perfect ideal. So I have on my seal Corpus-Animus, which I say loosely translate to mind and body. Because I know like a lot of people, they come in and they're like, I want to get lean. It's like, all right, well, we got to deal with your food. Most people's food comes down to the relationships that they have, the people they surround themselves with, their career, and their just natural behaviors, right? So if people are workaholics, they're going to be drinking a lot of caffeine, which is going to be an appetite suppressant. They're going to stay mentally stimulated all day, which probably is going to require sugar to stay fueled. So they'll stay low fat, not eat during the day, eat like bagels in the morning with a coffee with some sugar and a little bit of cream in it. Then at the end of the day, when they unwind from the stress, they're starving. And it was like, yeah, well, all of that food profile is really a behavior thing. And I think what you kind of in the powerful engagement talked about is like the balance of all four of those things, in my eyes, is the most difficult thing that there is to do. You can take one and drive it up. Like, yeah, it's easy to get just lean, but is it easy to create an integrated life that wraps all of those up together? Hell no. I mean, I try to do it. I'm not perfect. I still like to eat pizza when I get stressed out, or when I travel and go places. I still like to go out to dinner because I like to socialize and meet new people and talk about ideas and concepts about people that live in a different place than me, right? Like, so if I'm in my quote unquote tribe and all I do is hang out with my people who are all super health conscious and super food conscious and always training, yeah, it's easy for me to stay leaner and stay more fit and drive my strength numbers up and put more time in my business. But then where do my ideas come from? Where does my intellectual development from? Where's my emotional development? What happens to my relationships, my personal relationships? So for me, I don't want to say like I would pass judgment on that guy, because I know how difficult it is. And I know how difficult life stress in general is. I had a pretty tough time financially when I was getting Training Think Tank up off the ground. So working full time, building the business. I needed so much caffeine to keep my head on straight. And as a result, I ate a lot of sugar. So I gained weight. Like even though I was a really good athlete and I've accomplished a lot of things and I'm off the bell curve in terms of like what quote unquote normal is, I've had my struggles too. And I don't ever tell people they shouldn't have them. So I try not to put that out in my messaging. I try to put out like honesty. Like, it is hard. It is hard to live a balanced life. It's hard to take care of your body and your mind and your career and your relationships. And if you're really trying to do a really good job of all of them, I think ultimately you will trend towards more balance, but along the way, you're going to fuck up. Now, I think it's a massive fuck up if what you're talking about is true, and that guy has like one of his heads of his sales force in that position. But I wasn't there, so I don't know. And
no, I know.
Judge, but I hear what you're saying, man. I think it's a cultural problem, man. It's like, it's not just in fitness; it's everywhere.
Yeah, and I think you're right with the cultural problem. I mean, I think the guy is genuine. I think, and I'd actually advise anybody to read The Power of Full Engagement. I think it's a fantastic book. It's one of my top 5 self-development books ever. But it kind of like, it's almost like he got sucked in. You know, my guess is that they started the centre in Lake Mary or Lake Nona, I beg your pardon, in Orlando, and that it then became this rolling stone, this snowball. I'm mixing my metaphors now, but that you had to produce, and you have to produce, and you have to produce, and this is what, like Western society is all about. You've got to produce. You've got to. It's like, I worked for a company, ADP, Automatic Data Processing. At the time that I worked for them, they had 40 quarters of growth. And they were so proud of that, and they were so dedicated on keeping that growth going, that they shut an entire profitable department down and put 40 people out of business because that department didn't make enough money. It made money, but it didn't make enough, and they were obsessed with being the Queen of Wall Street or whatever it was. And so I get what you're saying. And the guy seemed super nice when I met him. And like I say, the book is really good. And maybe he doesn't even know. I just think there's this dichotomy that we get into where I think you're trying to bridge it. And I was a little bit skeptical coming into the call. And myself and Olivier talked before, and you've won me over. If you lived in Orlando, I'd fucking hire you in your heartbeat.
But by the way, but when I listened to you,
I probably couldn't afford you actually.
Yeah, that's true. By the way, but this is what it is. This is what I like about you. It's because you said the Corpus-Animus or something like that. Yep. It's the body and the mind. And for me, when you talk about fitness, is fine. It's about your body, but also it's about this. It's about you said spiritual, and I think there's also a quest behind that about you. About your spiritual quest, about your emotional quest. It's growing not only your body or become fit, but also how do you become a better person. Am I wrong to say that? Is it like
no? It's my guiding force right now. I mean, I'm not going to say forever. I don't really know. I wasn't like this all the time, so maybe this is just a phase of development. But, I think in the end of the day, everybody's searching for a feeling. They can call it happiness. I think most people, when they really try to get leaner, are searching for self-confidence. It's not really about the way they look. It's about actually liking themselves. It's about attracting other people. So in the end of the day, as much as I hate it, because I wish I could be robotic and take over the world, feelings are king in the human experience, right? Like they drive everything. They drive who we're attracted to, who inspires us. And feelings can be created from intellectual thoughts. So people that are even like, oh, well, I'm a scholar, I don't worry about that other stuff. I'm like, well, yeah, but the feeling of attraction that you feel to somebody that you respect their intelligence is still a feeling. And what are feelings? Are they just emotions? Are they just biological entities? Is there a spiritual side we don't know? Who knows if we'll ever get answers to those questions? But for me, I think challenging I've met a lot of rich people in my life. I've gotten lean and still hated myself. I've seen those rich people and been like, well, if that is happiness, that's not what I want, because I didn't even know how to define it, but I could see that there was a sense of angst and anxiety and a desperation to hold on to the resources that were created. And I was like, well, that's not what I want. So when I started challenging the assumptions about what I was doing, it left me in this like really weird state to try to define these very, very commonly accepted terms, like what is love? What is a relationship? What is happiness? What is self-confidence? And in the process of searching for those things, I started kind of redefining who I was without actually trying to do so. And then that translated into, how do I approach training? How do I approach coaching other people? How do I approach building a business that still requires me to take place in the material world and balance money and greed and finances and marketing and all this stuff, but create a message I believe in that's also not preying on people's insecurities and lying to them and giving them false hope. And like, I don't want to let people down. I don't want to convince you to come on board and be like, sure, 6 weeks, guaranteed six pack, you'll feel great. All your problems will be good. But if I did that, you'd be more likely to buy, which is the bullshit that I hate. So like, I do have to figure out how to optimally do that. I mean, I've been lucky because the competence of my business and myself and my coaches is pretty good. So we still have massive levels of growth and a lot of coaches, but maybe eventually I'll have to do that and figure out how to balance and what compromises to make. But sadly, I don't think a lot of people do that. And I think success can almost be a curse, right? Like you keep getting promoted, you keep making more money, you keep convincing yourself that you're happy, and then all of a sudden you're like, fuck, man, I just wasted my whole life. I'm so unhappy. I'm unhealthy. I feel like fucking shit. I have no one close to me. I have no mentors. I have nobody that I teach anything. I have a subset of skills that's completely fucking arbitrary, right? Like, oh yeah, you know how to type some shit into some software that someone made up, but you don't know anything else. You don't know anything about human dynamics, public speaking, how to control your body. Like, you can't sleep at night. You feel like shit. So people not asking these questions when they're going through their fitness journeys, to me, I'm like, whoa, I got to ask those questions, because if that's in my eyes, one of the most important reasons why we live is to connect. people need to be in the optimal state to connect, which requires some level of self-awareness. So I don't know if it's necessarily spiritual, but it's definitely a big part of who I am right now. It's definitely something that I've been really investing my mind in trying to understand. But I don't know if I'll ever get an answer to that question. That's just it's a fucking rabbit hole that just goes, it makes me more crazy. I think eventually I'll just get crazy enough that I don't make sense, which I might already be in.
You'll have a big beard, you know, and like your face, you'll be.
Yeah.
But also,
Yeah, what is it with that? What is it with the beards? I saw a guy this morning running like this. Just let's not go there.
Oiling it up. And like now there's a whole beauty around the beard. I can't grow a good one though.
No, I can't. That's why I'm bitter and twisted. It's
Yeah.
not. It's not because I don't think it's cool. It's because I've like it would take me like 9 years, and then it would be.
I'm balding, and then my facial hair, would look like a long string of pubes coming off.
Yeah.
It's not like a nice big
We're
bush.
brothers, mate. Like my hair growing ability, although your arms are hairy. I mean, look at my arms. I've got the most hairless arms. You know those cats. They've got no hair. I'm pretty sure my lineage could be
was from the hairless cats.
Yeah, the hairless cats. I think so. Anyway, just let me lap my milk because I've got a question.
I think we will. Yeah, it will be the last question. I think no.
Okay.
I just want one last question. Paleo, yes or no?
All right. Well, Olivier knows I don't do yes or no. It depends. I think for people that are eating a lot of processed foods, not training really hard, as a general guiding rule, to eat whole foods is probably a massive step in the right direction. Okay. Eventually, I think people need to transcend having that as their dogma, as their way of eating. Because if you are doing high intensity training and trying to get into, I'm trying to not use scientific terms because I feel like that would distract the audience, but think like high intensity.
No, we haven't got an audience.
CrossFit. Okay, just talk whatever I want. But, all right, let's say breathing really fucking hard. If you're doing that a lot of times a week, the carbohydrate needs generally go up way higher than what typical people can get with starchy carbs from potatoes or sweet potatoes or whatever. And the fat intake generally has to come down to accompany that. So I don't think that we should, in a modern world, be mimicking, like, we upgrade things over time, right? Like the old form of communication was like screaming. Does that mean we shouldn't use cell phones anymore because it wasn't around in the paleo era? And because of the, like, what that could potentially do to our brains and cause cancer and yada, yada, yada. Like, I think as we evolve into a different time, science and all of that stuff creates new food protocols that might actually be upgraded. So I don't think that paleo should be a dogma, but I think it's generally a good thing for the market that was probably overeating carbohydrates and undereating protein. So when most people do that, I think it's a good thing. I just don't think that can be the end point. And people have made it the end point because they went from really fat to kind of fit. And then they're like, oh my God, I found the new thing. Right. But paleo is really not that different from like good eating of the 80s or the Atkins diet. Most people are probably eating pretty low carb when they're going on paleo, minus the dairy that you can have on Atkins. It's pretty similar. Like people are just eating bacon and eggs for breakfast and like fatty pork and Brussels sprouts for dinner and like intermittent fasting and not eating in between. And I'm like, well, you're really just eating a low carb diet. It has nothing to do with the time zone your food or the time or era your food came from. So it depends, but I think it's probably not something I'd knock on for the general population because most people are probably trending in the right direction if they chose that.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And I agree we shouldn't eat dog meat, which I think is what you said. It's about dog meat or something like that. So I will leave it over to Olivier.
No, I'm so happy that you came actually because again, you just proven me wrong. You know, I think you could be a life coach, by the way, and you can be
I do better than the living.
better than me and the old guy actually, because or motivational speaker, because there's so much, you know.
Can I just say something? I've got to come in now.
Yeah.
I'm thinking we need to do a fucking seminar in Florida, in Orlando, and because I was listening to you speak, and seriously, Max, you have really, really impressed me. I didn't know much about you until about an hour ago, which is normally when I start to research my guests.
I'm glad you did research.
I know. You don't need to thank me. Thank you very much. And I would love to get that message out there. And I would love to. I think we can do a Raw Voices, just a seminar where we get people together that are open-minded. Because no fucker listens to this that isn't open. You just don't do it.
Absolutely.
Donald Trump isn't listening to this podcast. Trust me.
So I'm sure now that you'll sign up, Max. You know, how can you resist this appeal? Now you have to go. Now you know,
I'll be the only person in the audience.
Exactly.
You guys fucking up there, like, good job, guys.
Yeah.
But no,
my wife.
Yeah. Seriously, Max, thank you for this. And it was such a good thing actually to talk to you again. And we need to talk again. By the way, I think we need to connect still. There's a lot of things to discuss. So I'm still curious about on your part what you're doing. So
sure,
it has been a pleasure, man.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you. I appreciate it as well. Thanks so much, Max. Take care.
It was good to meet you, man.
Okay.